Jó reggelt kívánok! Engedjék meg, hogy bemutatkozzam. Tigyi Gábor vagyok, a 7-es biológiai osztály külső tagja, és ennek a konferenciának társszervezője Módy István professzor úrral, barátommal. Tisztelt elnök úr! A köztestületi igazgató urat nem látom, de őt is szeretném megköszönteni. Elnökségi tagok természetesen, tisztelt akadémikus tagtársak, köztestületi tagok, Nobel- és Ábel-díjas vendégeink, köztük Karikó Katalin, Maybrit Moser, Edward Moser, Aaron Chickenover, Aaron, I saw you, yes, and Lovász László professzor úr, Ábel-díjas díszvendégünk. Az Amerikai Magyar Akadémikusok Társasága, az Emlékkonferencia Szervezőbizottsága és társelnök társam Módy István nevében tisztelettel és szeretettel köszöntöm Önöket az MTL 200-as konferenciának megnyitóján. Az Akadémia 1825-ös alapítása óta eltelt 200 év, történelmi léptékkel mérve is számottevő időszak, amely az újkori magyar történelmi viharokban, sikerekben, borúban és derűben különlegesen gazdag periódusát foglalja magába. Ezen 200 éven keresztül a Magyar Tudományos Akadémia nemzetünk fejlődésében vitathatatlanul, alapvetően fontos, sok szempontból meghatározó történelmi szerepet töltött be. Az MTA vált a magyar tudós társadalom kapcsolatteremtőjévé a világ tudományos szervezeteivel, ezáltal osztva meg a magyar szellemi eredményeket az emberiség tudományos kincstárával. Éppen ezért a magyar tudós társadalom büszke felelőssége és kötelessége, hogy megemlékezzen erről az időszakról, amelyet szakmai hitvallásunknak megfelelően és hitelesen csakis egy tudományos konferencia keretében tudunk megtenni. Az MTA külső tagjainak privilégiuma és különleges kötelessége az, hogy az évfordulót méltóképpen elismerje és megünnepelje. Ennek vagyunk részesei. A tengeren túlról Magyarországon konferenciát szervezni nem kis feladat. Ezért szeretném megköszönni most a konferencia szervezésében résztvevő munkatársaink lelkes és körültekintő munkáját. Csapatunkból kiemelném néhányat. Ha itt vagytok, akkor a kezeteket tartsátok föl, hogy mindenki megismerjen benneteket. Aszalós Regina. Regina, hol vagy? Valószínűleg lent az asztalnál a vendégeket fogadja. Morvai Tünde. Hát ugye van, aki dolgozik. Bíró Ildikó itt ül, igen. Kecskés Ildikó, őt is láttam. Felnoémi. Szabó Judit könyvelőnk, Gulyás Tibor, Bok József, akik majd később hostjai lesznek rendezvényünknek, Ivanácz Dorina a Prestige Hotel részéről, Radzik Dorottya, Marosi Rita, a tegnapi vacsora gazdája a Kéli étteremben. Végezetül köszönetet mondok külső tagtársaimnak, akik a Széchenyi nagylelkű felajánlásának szellemében a konferencia megvalósításához tetemes anyagi hozzájárulásokkal megteremtették a konferencia költségfedezetének a túlnyomó többségét. Nagyon köszönjük. Ezzel átadom a szót levezető elnökünknek, Módy Istvánnak. Köszönöm a figyelmüket.
Thank you, Gábor. I will speak in English so that everybody understands. And I really appreciate what Gábor has done for this conference. I really salute the distinguished speakers and all from the plenary lecturers and those who are giving talks as foreign external members of the Hungarian Academy of Science. I would like to actually tell you a story that I'm also proud of. There are several lady scientists among us who came. As of today, there are 13 women scientists who obtained the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, out of 229 that were awarded since 1901. Out of those 13, unfortunately, 5 passed away, so there's 8 existing, and 2 of them are here giving plenary lectures. A similar proportion is there for the external members of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. They have 134 members, external members. 174 members of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. 16 of them are women. A quarter of them are here giving lectures. And that takes me to the role of this lady here, the Countess Crescens von Seidlin-Ansprang, who was the real reason why Count István Széchenyi went to Pozsony, to Bratislava today, where the State Assembly was held, that he was not a member of. Because he was madly in love with this lady, who just happened to be the wife of another count, Count Károly Zichy. And Károly Zichy was part of the assembly, so Széchenyi went there to actually see this lady. By this time, this lady has 7 children by Count Zichy, and inherited another 7 children from a previous marriage of Count Zichy. So she was the mother practically of 14 children at this time. But Széchenyi did not give up, and frankly later he admitted that part of the reason that he did this offering for the Hungarian Academy of Science, at that time it wasn't called the Academy of Science, but to be founded, was really to impress this lady. So this is why we're here, this is why this beautiful building, but later on, of course, it wasn't just his donation that contributed to the Academy, it was many other magnates and their aristocrats who contributed. But I would like to again emphasize and use this occasion to encourage young women scientists to really carry out a career in science, because after all, it's worth it. So thank you very much. With that, I would like to invite the president of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, Professor Tamás Freund, to give his welcome address.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, friends, distinguished guests, it is with great joy and reverence that I welcome you on behalf of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences to the opening of this 2-day scientific conference organized in celebration of a truly exceptional event, the 200th anniversary of the founding of our Academy. 2 centuries have passed since Count István Széchenyi, driven by his vision for Hungary's intellectual and cultural progress, and of course by the lady mentioned by István, offered a year's income from his estates to establish a learned society dedicated to science. Since that time, the Academy has stood as a guardian of scientific freedom, excellence, and national responsibility. And today, as then, we can only remain true to our founding ideals by embracing both tradition and innovation. This is why we are especially honored this year by the presence of so many globally renowned scientists whose work not only shapes the future of science worldwide, but also reflects the enduring strength and legacy of Hungarian intellectual life. Let me take a moment to especially recognize and warmly welcome the following distinguished guests: Professors Maybrit and Edward Moser, recipients of the 2014 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine; Professor Aaron Chikanover, recipient of the 2004 Nobel Prize in Chemistry; Professor Katalin Karikó, recipient of the 2023 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine; and Professor László Lovász, recipient of the 2021 Abel Prize, one of the highest honors in mathematical sciences. Your presence here is not only a great privilege for our academy, it is also a powerful affirmation that Hungarian science is very much alive and thriving well beyond our national borders. We are sincerely grateful that you chose to join us in celebrating this historic occasion, and thank you for bringing with you your knowledge, your vision, and above all, your passion for discovery. I would also like to extend my warmest greetings and appreciation to all of our external members, those Hungarian scientists who live and work abroad and have long served as living bridges between the scientific community of Hungary and the wider world. Our co-organizer, the American Hungarian Academicians Association, AMAT, has played an essential role in maintaining and strengthening these ties, and we are deeply grateful for their efforts and commitment in helping to realize this exceptional program. I would like to emphasize how unique and uplifting it is that today the work of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences is being shaped not only by researchers within Hungary, but also by Hungarian scientists from neighboring countries and from across the globe. This global dispersion doesn't divide us. On the contrary, it unites us. It reinforces our intuitive conviction that the Academy is not only a geographical institution, but also an intellectual and moral community. We are deeply thankful that so many of you cherish the value this bond and that you actively shape the intellectual network that keeps Hungarian science respected and alive around the world. For researchers working beyond Hungary's borders, whether in the neighboring countries or in the diaspora, maintaining a living connection with the Academy is not merely symbolic. It is a vital source of inspiration, collaboration, and scientific identity. It confirms that Hungarian science is a shared heritage, one that transcends borders, languages, and even generations. And it also reminds us that the Academy is strongest when it recognizes and embraces the full richness of this extended community. At this point, allow me to express my deep personal gratitude to Professors Gábor, Tigyi, and István, Módy, who have worked tirelessly for nearly 2 years to make this conference a reality. Their vision, perseverance, and exceptional commitment to building a scientific community have been absolutely essential to the success of this event. We all owe them our sincere thanks for bringing together such a distinguished group of scholars in honor of the Academy's bicentennial. The topics you will hear about today and tomorrow reflect the true breadth and richness of science, ranging from quantum physics to medicine, from mathematical theory to humanities, and from space diagnostics to economic policy. And yet, across this diversity, there is a common spirit that unites us: our thirst for understanding, our respect for evidence, and our belief in the value of knowledge for society. In the face of today's global challenges, including climate change, pandemics, technological disruption, and geopolitical instability, we must transcend the boundaries of disciplines. We must work shoulder to shoulder, listening carefully to one another and finding solutions in collaboration. That is what this event stands for: a celebration of scientific dialogue, cooperation, and mutual inspiration. The Academy's 200 years are not only a source of pride in our past, they are also a responsibility for the future. Our mission remains clear, namely, to support science, uphold its independence, and ensure that both basic and applied research contribute to a more equitable, sustainable, and enlightened world. I trust that the presentations, discussions, and encounters over the next 2 days will spark new ideas, new collaborations, and long-lasting connections. May this event be not only a jubilee of past and present, but also a starting point for the science of the next century. Thank you for being here, for honoring the Academy with your presence, and for joining us in celebrating knowledge, intellectual freedom, and the enduring power of the Hungarian scientific tradition. Thank you for your attention.
As this conference is also the gathering of the external members of the Hungarian scientists, of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, I would now like to ask Professor Tamás Freund, the president of the Academy, and Kocsis, who is the president of the Council of Relations for the Foreign Hungarian Scientists, to come forward to present the prizes for the Hungarians abroad, which are named after one of the first presidents of the Academy, János Arany. I would also ask Nora Deák to come and do the laudations for the prizes. Please.
A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság Arany János életműdíjat adományozott Tigyi Gábornak. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee awarded the János Arany Lifetime Achievement Award to Gábor Tigyi. Tigyi Gábor nemzetközileg kiemelkedő tudományos és innovációs munkája, valamint a magyar kutatás aktív támogatása egyaránt érdemessé teszi az Arany János életműdíjra. Gratulálunk! A díjat az Akadémia ünnepi közgyűlésen vette át. Gábor Tigyi's world-renowned contribution to science and innovation and his active support to Hungarian research activities earned him the János Arany Lifetime Achievement Award. He previously received the award during the ceremonial General Assembly of the Academy. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság 2020-ban adományozott Arany János életműdíjat Kuti Gyulának. A díjat akadályoztatása miatt csak most áll módjában személyesen átvenni. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee awarded the János Arany Lifetime Achievement Award to Gyula Kuti in 2020. We are pleased to present him the award in person at this time. Kuti Gyula a kutatói utánpótlás elősegítése érdekében kiemelt figyelmet fordított a fiatal kutatók karrierjének támogatására. A modern kvantumelmélet irányzathoz a magyar elméleti fizikusoknak az 1970-es évtizedben és azt követően pályára lépett nemzedékei a Kuti Gyula által megszabott irányhoz csatlakoztak, amely a nukleonok quark szerkezetének feltárását tűzte ki célul maga elé. With the mentoring of the up-and-coming generation of researchers in mind, Gyula Kuti has dedicated much of his efforts to supporting the career development of young researchers. The generations of Hungarian theoretical physicists starting their careers in modern quantum theory in the 1970s and subsequent decades have become advocates of the approach set out by Gyula Kuti, which was aimed at unveiling the structure of quarks with nucleons. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság kiváló tudományos teljesítménydíjat adományozott Pető Ágnesnek. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee awarded the Outstanding Scientific Achievement Award to Ágnes Pető. Pető Ágnes a film- és médiatudomány területén elért kiemelkedő eredményei, az intermedialitás filmművészetbeli kutatásában kifejtett úttörő munkássága és iskolával alapító tevékenysége példaértékű. Ágnes Pető's outstanding results in film and media studies as well as her pioneering work in the research of intermediality in cinema, which has evolved into a school of thought in its own right, make her a truly inspirational figure. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság kiváló tudományos teljesítménydíjat adományozott Szegi-Gajer Veronikának. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee awarded the Outstanding Scientific Achievement Award to Veronika Szegi-Gajer. Szegi-Gajer Veronika Budapestről Kassára áttelepülve a szlovákiai magyar és általában a szlovákiai történetírás fontos személyiségévé nőtte ki magát. Tudományos aktivitásának köszönhetően a Szlovák Tudományos Akadémia intézményi keretein belül több magyar szempontokat és vonatkozásokat felvonultató kutatás is indult, és jelenleg is folyik. Moving from Budapest to Košice, Kassa, Veronika Szegi-Gajer has distinguished herself as an important personality of Hungarian historiography in Slovakia and Slovakian historiography in general. Through her scientific activities, she has been instrumental in the launch of several research projects within the research network of the Slovak Academy of Sciences, which have Hungarian components and a Hungarian perspective to them, with several of these projects still ongoing. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A 2025. évi Arany János Fiatal Kutatói Díjat a Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság Baka L. Patriknak adományozta. This year, the János Arany Young Researcher Award was granted by the Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee to Patrik L. Baka. Baka L. Patrik tevékenysége az irodalomtudomány spektrumába illeszkedik, de tudományos érdeklődése sokrétegű. Folyamatosan képes integrálni a különféle tudományterületek legújabb eredményeit, ugyanakkor nagy hangsúlyt fektet az irodalomoktatás kérdéskörére is, melyen belül eredeti javaslatokkal él. Doboz tankönyv koncepciója feltétlenül értékelendő vállalkozás az oktatási kérdések újragondolása szempontjából. While Patrik L. Baka has been active in the field of literary studies in the first place, his research interests span over a large array of themes. He is capable of continuously integrating in his work the latest results of the various scholarly disciplines, at the same time focusing on the methodology of literary education, in which he has come up with some original ideas. His concept of box course books is without doubt a highly commendable enterprise in a bid to bring in new approaches to issues of education. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság Arany János érmet ítélt oda Lengyel Lászlónak. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee presented László Lengyel with János Arany Medal. Lengyel László a vajdasági térség fejlesztését meghatározó programokban és projektekben elsőként vesz részt, több esetben vezeti is azokat. László Lengyel has always been at the forefront of programs and projects for the development of the region of Vojvodina. Several of these have him as their leader. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Külföldön Elnöki Bizottság 2025-ben Arany János érmet adományoz Szalma Józsefnek. In 2025, the Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee will award the János Arany Medal to József Szalma. Szalma József jogász az elmúlt több mint fél évszázadban a vajdasági magyar tudományos közélet szervezésében, irányításában, az egyetemi oktatásban, könyvkiadásban, tudományos ismeretterjesztésben kiemelkedő érdemeket szerzett. For over half a century, the legal scholar József Szalma has taken the lead in organizing and managing the activities of the Hungarian scientific community in Vojvodina, in university education, book publishing, and dissemination of scientific knowledge to the public at large. Gratulálunk! Congratulations! A Magyar Tudományosság Elnöki Bizottság szintén Arany János érmet adományozott Veres Emődnek. The Hungarian Science Abroad Presidential Committee also awarded the János Arany Medal to Emőd Veres. Veres Emőd kiemelt szerepet játszott az erdélyi magyar jogtudomány, ezen belül a magyar nyelvű felsőfokú jogi oktatás szervezésében, a magyar nyelvű szakirányú tradíció szisztematikus feldolgozásában, ápolásában, kiadásában és népszerűsítésében, a romániai magyar nyelvű jogi terminológia újjáélesztésében és művelésében. Emőd Veres has been a leading figure in organizing the discipline of Hungarian legal science in Transylvania, and as part of this effort in introducing and managing Hungarian language undergraduate and graduate university programs in legal studies, as well as systematically processing, nurturing, publishing, and popularizing the Hungarian language scholarly tradition of legal science, reviving and advancing Hungarian legal terminology in Romania. Gratulálunk! Congratulations!
Thank you, Ms. Deák. Thank you, President Freund, and also President Kocsis. And with that, we are starting the scientific program. And our first speaker is János from Vanderbilt University. And he's an external member of the Hungarian Academy of Science in the sixth section of engineering. And he will be talking about the convergence across physics, biology, and computing, the benefits we reap, and the price we pay. János, you have 30 minutes, and I will signal otherwise. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, István, and I'm really honored to be the first speaker of this conference, and I promise everything after me will be much better. So the topic I talk about is convergence across physics, biology, and computing. And let me start with introducing with some facts. So as you all know, we see alternating periods of disciplinary specialization and cross-disciplinary synthesis. These different periods are often triggered by new scientific insights, new revolutions, but also technological needs. Just looking at the few decades before, we can tell that between 1980 and 2010, the dominating trend was disciplinary depth with some synthetic elements. The disciplinary depth which dominated was particle physics, genomics, and a variety of computer science subfield. That was the era when ad hoc networking came up, mobile computing, social networking, and many others. Regarding synthesis, there were early signs of later large fields that emerged, bioinformatics, nanotechnology, and environmental science. If we go further, from 2010 and after, we clearly see that we went into the dominating part of the synthesis. Just let me mention here artificial intelligence, of course, which integrates computer science, neuroscience, and mathematics. Synthetic biology, which combines biology, engineering, chemistry, and computer science. Climate science, which blends atmospheric physics, chemistry, economics, and policy, and of course computer science. Let me just also mention that the fact that we are in the age of synthesis was recognized by the Science Board of the US National Science Foundation, which created in 2016 the 10 big ideas of NSF, showing what is expected for the next 10 years. And one of the areas, what they named was growing convergence research, and that area actually inspired the creation of a completely new division in the National Science Foundation and the program, but I will talk a bit later. So why is synthesis is so interesting? It's interesting because the synthesis are the periods that are inspired by solving really wicked problems, problems that start changing whenever you start solving some part of it. And these are pandemics, AI ethics, and many others. And of course, it was also helped by the huge advances in computing, like internet, collaborative platforms, and artificial intelligence. Now, let me talk about our journey, because I might tell that our institute was really flowed along basically this whole synthesis process. One area where the journey for us started was embedded systems, and let's say I look at the periods between 1998 and 2008. Here is an example for an embedded system, which is a quadrotor, which is nicely floating in the air and can do all sorts of missions. What we see here is the physical structure of this drone. What we can't see is that inside of the drone there is an embedded computing device which keeps it in the air, stabilizes it, and let the propellers control that way that they execute all sorts of missions. The physical system itself is connected to this computing device through sensor and actuator interfaces. What's interesting is that although it's a computing device running a software, from the point of view of the physical system, what it shows, that's another physical system. So computing started using for implementing basically different physical dynamics. If we look what's behind, you see specific kind of hardware. It's an example of Arduino Uno hardware, which is around now. There are different types of models that are used for creating this hardware architecture, software architecture, interestingly, very rich conceptual organization, different types of concurrency model, timing models, and so forth. Of course, that integrated physical system together with the computing device is interacting with the physical environment, and the whole point is to stabilize the operation of this device in spite of the many uncertainties what we know about how the physical environment will behave while the system is operating. Now, look at how this whole era evolved. Perhaps the best summary for that was the appearance of model-based design of embedded systems. Model-based design means that when we are building these kind of systems and engineer these systems, you have to use a whole bunch of different kind of perspective expressed as formal models. These are expressed in terms of domain-specific modeling languages, and I just show here example for the different modeling languages and how they manifest themselves in modeling environments. Now, this information, which is captured in these modeling languages, then connect it to a bunch of generators. These are basically compilers, very specific compilers, that extract information from these different types of models and then translate it into different outputs. These outputs serve as configuring the underlying hardware and software components, providing input for verification tools, and generating the code itself. Model transformation has become a very important element, a design goal basically for embedded system design, and includes quite interesting and technically very challenging areas for modeling the generators, generating from these models the generators, and doing all sorts of formal proofs how they work. Altogether, we can tell that the advancements between 98 and 2008 in the embedded computing era was significant and marked basically a code-based design shifting to model-based methods. And finally, that shift was widely adopted by both academia and industry. Here is a table that I won't go through, which shows what are the important things that happened during that process. Regarding foundations, domain-specific modeling languages, the whole concept of meta-modeling and meta-programmable tools, which means modeling the modeling languages and creating from these meta-models tools that support domain-specific modeling. That's another emerging area. And of course, the whole field of model transformations. Regarding the deep scientific contribution, I need to mention the hybrid systems, where the hybrid systems are combining continuous and discrete dynamics, which is quite interesting and very challenging venture. The high-tech and PHA where are specific tools that provide analytics for verifying hybrid system dynamics. And there are different other disciplines like the whole concept of component-based design, platform-based design, and the whole suite of verification, validation techniques. So let's go on and move toward a broader sense of convergence between physical engineering and computing. If you look at that thing there, that Waymo Jaguar I-Pace in San Francisco, this is one example for the new category of systems. Again, what you see is the physical structure. What you can see is where most of the complexity is, which is inside of that car. Obviously, the whole issue comes up that while embedded computing was basically the response to the fact that computing is now used in the physical context, now the question is not only how the physical environment impacts computing, but the other way around, how computing impacts the physical system itself. And that led to the emergence of the whole era of cyber-physical systems that look both sides together, and one might tell that this is basically the true convergence between the physical sciences and physical engineering and computer science and all of its foundation. There are many, many different things that emerged during the past 2 decades of cyber-physical systems. I don't go through on all of these, but we progressed from individual systems like robots and other smaller devices and going toward human cyber-physical systems when the human itself was part of the interaction. So we had to deal with how to model the human agents, how to develop human-machine interfaces, how to interpret the mutual introspection which is required when humans and computers are working together. And finally, moving toward the societal scale, human cyber-physical system like traffic flows and power distribution system and so forth. Now, the big question after the cyber-physical system era came up, whether model-based design is sufficient for cyber-physical system design in its full glory. Here is a diagram which shows what is model-based design in a very simplified way. So it's a design process which receives requirements and environments expressed in terms of well-defined, formally solid models. And that process generates at the output a system model, which is the design system model, such that when you compose the system model with the environment model, it will satisfy the required properties, the requirement models. So clearly that defines the overall intention of it. Now, of course, the process is, because we are talking about engineered system, doesn't stop here. The system model needs to be realized and put in the physical world. So finally, a system will be built. And the big goal is that the model as it was designed behaves quite closely to the model as it's implemented. So that's the golden challenge for embedded or model-based design. The basic question whether model-based design is sufficient for a cyber-physical system was tested with a large-scale test. The DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, which funds a whole lot of things in systems and computing. Adaptive Vehicle Make program between 2010 and 2014. It was an extremely ambitious program. It targeted not only to decide that question, but also see whether a cyber-physical system can be designed exactly the same way as VLSI systems are designed. So creating design houses and foundries, how to model manufacturability constraints, and so forth. Well, the answer to this big question was that no, the model-based design is not sufficient. We were the component, the institute, which created the whole design automation tool suite for this program. And we really felt how these limitations bite us. Some of the big lessons what we learned was that creating multi-fidelity model libraries is very hard and extremely expensive. That was one reason why we couldn't accomplish most of the things, or many of the things what we set out to do. It was the complete design and implementation of a large military vehicle. There were very severe limits for scalability and analysis tools. We faced continuously issues with the so-called epistemic uncertainty, which is the limits of knowledge while you are creating models. And of course, there were problems with constructing the design space and how to explore the design space and so forth. So let me go on how these problems were solved. It was 2014 when the program finished. Fortunately, of course, AI started shooting up. There were the new big breakthroughs of artificial intelligence. So the new agenda was how to combine model-driven approaches with data-driven approaches. Here is again a DARPA program, and that's a brief sketch. What was the first issue what we faced with this from operation point of view? When we started building in AI methods in operational systems, then suddenly that blue component starts showing up. These are learning-enabled components. These learning-enabled components didn't or were not designed symbolic methods, but they are learned, extracted basically from observations, from data. These learning-enabled components are very special and very different kind of components than the others, the conventional controllers and the physical structure, and simply because there are limits of our understanding how they behave under different kind of circumstances. So that was a huge challenge. That architecture, actually a simplified architecture, what you saw here, was tested and built by Professor Karsai, who is sitting right there. He was the principal investigator of this program. And again, that was the big issue, how to verify, how to assure the behavior of that type of system which has not one but more possibly of these learning-enabled component. The result of this was quite interesting insight, which at least in our project, one of our colleagues did. The learning-enabled component themselves needs to be continuously monitored. And the continuous monitoring was based on observing the current input to a learning-enabled component and its relationship to all of the training data, which was used for deriving the learning-enabled component. If the two are conformant, then everything looks good. We are inside of the behavioral boundary. If there is no conformance between them, then the system can indicate that, and we need to do the interventions. So basically imagine that now the card looks like that there is an assurance gauge, and that assurance gauge knows or shows that when you are in an environment what the learning-enabled component know about, then the assurance is high. But when you go out from that range, it's detected, and suddenly the assurance of your car is started going down, so you better take over the control. Now, that's one part of it, the operation. The other part, of course, is the design itself. There was another DARPA program which related to this. This was the Symbiotic Design of Cyber-Physical System program, what looked at how can we enrich the design process in engineering. I can't talk more about it, just showing you a slide. This captures the conceptual design phase of UAVs. One group from Stanford Research Institute came up with a process which first of all extended tremendously the design phase and generated a whole lot of surprising alternatives that behave well and behave a very interesting way, provide interesting architectures what humans would have never thought because no one was wandering around those remote parts of the overall design space. So that's a very interesting, very promising area, and it's very extensively now pursued in all parts of the world in engineering design. Altogether, modern CPS really is a convergent discipline. It integrates a number of other disciplines that are coming from a very broad range, from AI control theory going to physics. And that was a very interesting success story as far as I see. Regarding cyber biological systems, cyber biological systems means that now we fuse basically computing with biology. And what we saw is a remarkably similar trajectory which unfolds in life sciences. That little footnote is a reference to a workshop what we started organizing in this topic. Vanderbilt has a huge medical school with fantastic research groups, and we started looking at that aspect for different reasons. I will talk about it. So we particularly looked at three areas. Biosurveillance, I will talk about a project what I was quite a bit involved with one of my former students at Microsoft. The other one is synthetic biology. That area at Vanderbilt is led by Jens Meiler. He also has a lab in Leipzig, and one of the authors of Rosetta, which is something like AlphaFold. And the third area is biomanufacturing, where Jim Crow is one of the well-known figures who has developed the monoclonal antibody for COVID, and that was the AstraZeneca's medicine. So let me talk about one of these, the biosurveillance. That was funded under the Convergence Accelerator program, the NSF program that I mentioned before, with the goal to provide real-time biomonitoring and data-driven threat forecasts. And our initial use case was AI-guided suppression of mosquito-borne diseases, with a pilot site at Harris County Public Health, which is Houston, basically, a huge area. The list of the participants in the project shows why it's a convergence project. It includes many, okay, let's go back. John Hopkins, University of Pittsburgh, the Harris County Weather Forecast Company, Microsoft, and also University of Washington for predicting mosquito behaviors. So Ethan's big idea for this project was to turn mosquitoes into sensors and use the mosquitoes to sample the environment. For being useful, you need to know what is the habitat where they are. We need to identify the mosquito species and detect the pathogens that are carried in the mosquito. It was earlier a very difficult process, very manually expensive, long, and we wanted to totally do it real time and automate the whole thing. So this is the start. This is the place where again computing starts interfering with everything. Here is a device that came out of it as one element. It's basically a biological weather station. It can capture mosquitoes such that it emits attractants. And when the mosquito probes the input, that black area with that light, then there is a laser sensor which detects from the wing pattern what type of mosquito it is. And out of the 1,200 different types of mosquitoes, it can identify with extreme accuracy, over 99% accuracy, the actual type. And that actual type will be sucked in. So if you look how it's working, that little video shows it. These are the sucked-in mosquitoes. These are actually mosquito types that transmit West Nile virus. These are collected. The technicians are coming out every day or every other day and take it into the lab. And in the lab, the mosquitoes, the captured mosquitoes of a certain type are ground up, and a soup is created. Which, as you see it on the left side, they are sequenced, and on the right side you see a gigantic database which includes all of the DNA sequences of known species. It goes through on that metagenomic pipeline, and all of the DNA sequences that are in that soup is sorted out. It identifies what were the animal hosts, what are the mosquito genes, and what are the viruses that found in the mosquito belly, in the body. So that was a very important first element. That's what that thing provides. And the output of the whole process is like a weather map, but it shows what kind of infestations, what kind of viruses are around in the environment. And that helps basically the public health authorities to decide how to do vector control, where to use insecticides, and how to optimize the whole process. Now, that was one example, and combining with the cyber-physical system examples that how convergence provides fantastic benefits and project an exciting future. Now let's go to the other part. What is the price for this? In almost all cyber X systems, you see that these systems are very deeply layered. That's the cyber-physical system-like layering, but that I could do exactly the same thing for cyber-biological systems. That layering means that we do the design and build the systems in these different layers, but every layer provides vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities provide effects, and the unfortunate fact that these effects are propagating up and down. It's very easy to lose tractability, and that's the source of the most serious problem. How to prevent that attacks, intentional attacks, will wreak havoc on any part. For example, in cyber-physical system, let's say attacks in the human layer can do physical implications and so forth. How serious is this is shown by Clarity. Clarity is a company which provides a global survey on CPS security, and this is the result what they found in 2024. They interviewed 1,100 cyber physical system operation leads. These were operators of power plants and all sorts of things. 45% reported financial impact over $500,000. That was the result of different cyber attacks. 17% reported loss over $1 million. The biggest problem were ransomware, where you know that the attacker does something which can be used to blackmail the operators. 53% of all of these 1,100 met ransom demands of more than $500K, and 78% reported ransom payment over $500,000 in the healthcare sector. And there is that floating threat, what happened with the critical infrastructure security, because many of these threats are embedded possibly deeply in the computational infrastructure, which is working in our chemical plants and so forth, or power distribution plants. We looked at the AI implications, particularly in biosecurity, from the point of view of synthetic biology. Fortunately, I don't need to talk much about it because there is a fantastic National Academy's report which just came in about a month ago that looked into the age of AI in life sciences and what are the benefits and biosecurity considerations in synthetic biology. Here is an interesting chart. So when you look synthetic biology, there is this pipeline. Some part of the early part of the pipeline is the digital part, the ideation and the design of a self-replicating organism. Then comes the digital biology divide, which is not breached yet, but it will be. Where comes now the biological physical part, which is highly automated labs that do the build, do the testing, very high performance, large yield testing, extract what can be learned from this testing and feed it back to the design process. At this point, the study established that the contribution of AI to these different phases, the new AI elements, is limited at this point, simply because the lack of data. So for the ideation, there is not enough data to predict the pathogenesis and transmissibility of the different organs which is to be designed. And also virus design rules are poorly understood. However, the issue is quite different when we look at the molecule level biosynthesis. That is the synthetic bio for producing toxins and virulence factors for existing viruses. There, the contribution of the new AI is huge. It's possible now, basically, to design toxins, the DNA of the toxins, and get over and go to production. So let me finish this up. That was the first question. The benefits we reap and the price we pay. It's always true in biosecurity and cyber-physical system security that it's easier to find payer for the benefits now than for paying prevention of damage in the future. That's the market failure of security. But don't forget, but one way or another, we have to pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you, János. Please stay up here for a minute. I was wondering why you need the mosquito attractants when you could have used me, but I would like to present you with a small present that was purchased from all the contributions of the external members of the Hungarian Academy. This is a little porcelain statue from the Porcelain Manufacturing Journal, and this is a diploma from the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, signed by the president and Gábor and myself with a little medal. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is from the chemistry section of the Hungarian Academy of Science, section number 7, and his name is András Gutman, who is from the University of California, San Diego, from the Institute of Bioseparation Sciences. Title of his talk is Microfluidics-based bioanalytical systems from DNA sequencing to diagnostics in space. Please, thank you, András.
Thank you very much, István, and I appreciate the opportunity and this honor, actually, to speak in this prestigious meeting. And as the title shows, I just would like to show how microfluidics emerging these days and how did it solve DNA sequencing in the first place, and we'll have the opportunity to do something in space as well. I just push this and it goes. Oh, excellent, very good. Yes. So there is a paradigm shift these days in life sciences, and in the past we have organic chemists working in the lab, provided compounds and doing trial and error experiments. And today we have these combinatorial libraries, and we can generate millions of compounds in a very easy way. In the past we had the biological black box, and today we have access to gene sequences and gene products as well using omics technology. So an example is this rational drug design based on systems biology. We have the genome, and we have the multi-omics system, and then we have the target. I guess the arrows are just kind of embedded in this, but there were arrows between the genome and the multi-omics, for example. And, oh God, some of these are just not exactly as they were. I should have checked it, sorry. So we have the complex biological sample, and as a separation scientist, I'm doing separations in the lab, and on the genomic part, it was done already. So we developed sequencers, the capillary electrophoresis-based sequencers. I will be showing an example of that one, and generated practically the genome blueprint. And the other omics analytical systems are still emerging. So like proteomics, metabolomics, glycomics, lipidomics, and so forth. We need instrumentation, and we need better and better instrumentation because it's always more to separate. And with that one, we generate huge databases. And with this data, we try to solve problems as well in systems biology, for example, like with differential gene expression. We have the genome database, we have the other omics databases, and we try to find the differences. And as it was actually mentioned multiple times by the previous speaker, AI will be used in the future to find even more fine differences. So let's see what the trends are these days in bioseparation sciences. The requirements are we have to manipulate, we have to be able to manipulate very small sample volumes. And we would like to analyze them very rapidly with high resolution, and some of them are very complex mixtures. And the separation conditions should be as such that if we collect any of the fractions, we can do downstream analysis as well. And the detection sensitivity, the dream is then going down to the single molecule level. And the applications what we are using in bioseparation sciences are in systems biology, like genome or other omics, mainly in my group, which is the biomarker discovery, but other applications like organelle analysis and biological pathways, target validation are options as well. So the methods what we have and the tools, with the old-fashioned slab gel electrophoresis, which people have been using like for almost a century, and it's like agarose gel or polyacrylamide gel, and etc. Modern techniques like high-performance liquid chromatography, which was invented by a very famous Hungarian scientist at Yale University, Csaba Horváth, and it's an interesting story because he was waiting for the samples from the moon being bring back by the Apollo program. But the Apollo program was delayed by 2 years, so he was bored and built the first HPLC system. And since then, HPLC is being used in every laboratory, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Multidimensional separation methods are important too. Capillary electrophoresis, what I will be talking about, and microchips, mass spectrometry. Mass spectrometry is really emerging these days, and especially with the advent of ESI and Módy methods, then large molecules can be analyzed by mass spectrometry, proteins, even protein complexes. NMR is another one. Hyphenated techniques, we can put together this liquid chromatography or capillary electrophoresis systems to mass spectrometers or NMR, and microfabrication with microfluidics. Oh God, I should have really checked it here. I'm sorry that there were things actually in those boxes I can tell you, but the main point is that we are using capillaries, and the capillaries are like 50 micron inner diameter long columns, and immersed in buffers, and the platinum electrodes drives through the current, and that current drives the separation through the capillary. We do the detection with UV detection or fluorescent detection and analyze the data. And one of the first separation what we did in the DNA analysis field is here. And this shows a single nucleotide separation of a polyadenylic acid mixture. And that was really the basis of DNA sequencing, the big change in DNA sequencing methods, because previously this was done by slab gel electrophoresis, which was really labor-intensive and time-consuming. But these days, not these days, because these days is even the third-generation sequencers are working, but those days when the Human Genome Project was in progress, this was a huge step forward. Instead of using the large slab gels, companies started to manufacture these multi-capillary systems up to 96 capillaries, and allowing with the development of the replaceable gel technology and Beckman instrument, what I was working at that time, it allowed doing sequencing much faster and finishing the Human Genome Projects years earlier than it was planned. But the same technology can be used in the other omics field as well. And for example, proteomics and glycomics, one of my main research focus. And this is just an example of separating some released glycans, carbohydrates, from different proteins like fetulin or ribonuclease B. And the important part of this one is that we can separate species which are only like linkage differences. Imagine that you can put together two nucleotides in one way. You can put together two amino acids in one way. With two sugars, you can put them together in 32 different ways. So imagine if you have the post-translational modification with a sugar structure of like 10, 15 units, the diversity is just enormous. And you have to do the separation, otherwise you won't be able to check if there are changes due to diseases or anything. And this technology allows us to do that, just to separate by linkage differences. So what is glycomics anyway? The glycom is the entire complement of the complete set of sugars in the body, and it's either chemically bound, like the glycoproteins or glycolipid, or just in a more complex forms. And the glycom undergoes constant changes in physiological and pathological conditions, and there were associations found between diseases and these changes. And the IgG, the human IgG, is an interesting protein because it's the most abundant glycoprotein in blood. It's 24%, 25% of that one is IgG. And the glycosylation of this conserved site of 297, the asparagine, can serve as biomarker for different diseases. This just shows the separation by capillary electrophoresis of the glycans released from human IgG molecule. And this is just an important part of that one, that this blue and the red arrows show two structures. And those two structures have exactly the same number of sugar units. Almost the same linkages too, except one of them has the 6 arm and one of them have the galactose on the 3 arm. So that's the only difference between those. The molecular mass is the same, everything is the same except the linkage. And they can be separated in that way as the blue and the red arrow shows, and you can drive a truck through there, so the separation is that good. I know it's a little bit complicated slide, but this is the one that shows the changes in human IgG in various pathological conditions. And it was supposed to be working in that way that only the upper part shows up and then the lower part comes up, but apparently it doesn't work that way. But there's an example of, thank you, of the rheumatoid arthritis. On the big circle, the middle part shows the classification. It's cancer or autoimmune or inflammatory. The middle part shows the disease itself, and the perimeter shows the changes in the sugars. And that's an example of rheumatoid arthritis. As you can see, for example, the G0, which is the agalactosylated structure of this glycan, it's increasing. The G1 is decreasing, and where have 2 galactoses, it doesn't change. And the sialylated and fucosylated structures are decreasing with the progress of the disease, and the fucosylation and bisecting structures are increasing. So, and with all of those diseases, these things are already published and identified, so we can check those as biomarkers just to do the separation. But we need to miniaturize this even further. So imagine that we had this 50 micron capillary, but it was like 50 centimeter long or even 60 centimeter long. We would like to miniaturize this one in a microfluidics level, that it will be much smaller, so it will be available really taking up to space. And in that way, we can reduce the reagents consumption, because some of the reagents are very expensive. We can decrease the waste volume, which is important too, because getting rid of the waste on Earth is sometimes more expensive than buying the new reagents. And we have rapid high-performance separations and easy multiplexing. Easy multiplexing is an important issue as well, because it's like the same thing as the computer chip industry. If you make one design and doing the etching and all of these things as the development, you can make 96 or 384 in the same way. So it's practically the same process. And you can integrate parts into that system. So you can get mixing, you can get sample preparation part, and so forth. So there is a fundamental change in laboratory toolsets these days. And imagine the first computer that János developed, and it occupied almost the size of the room like this one. Right now we have laptops here, or smartphones, or even smartwatches, doing way much more than the original computer. So what we would like to do is that we have a laboratory. Scientists are working there with different tasks. We want to put it on the size of a credit card in a microchip to do the same thing. And the question is that if we can do that. And the important message is that it's the integrated circuit created the microelectronics revolution, not the transistor itself. But in the system integration, can we do that in the chemical microchips? That's the question. So the other thing is the Morse law, that the speed of the computing is like doubles every 18 months, and I hope it's still valid. The question, if we can do it in the chemical microchips the same way. So the facts are that we can design and implement these complex fluidic patterns and manufacture in glass or various plastic materials in the size of like 2 to 10 centimeter scale, it's depending on the wafer size. And the modes of transportation can allow picoliter volumes, which are very, very little volumes, and using pressure or electroosmotic flow. The detection, as I mentioned, it's the dream is that going down to the single molecule level by laser-induced fluorescence detection. And these devices can provide 10 to 100x higher speed improvements over traditional systems. And as I mentioned earlier, multiplexing is an important part too. We can do one-channel systems, we can do 384-channel systems. So the electrokinetic movement is the first thing what is driven by the electroosmotic flow. And I really hope that this movie will be working. That's a problem. So this is supposed to be a movie, which is very interesting, because that shows, and I don't know why doesn't it work. Anyway, so it would show how the species are migrating under the electric field, and the positively charged species, the negatively charged species, and the neutral ones. But for some reason it doesn't work, and this one is shifted too. So when we build a microchip, then we have like very simple configurations, like the channel, the T, and the cross, and then this second and the third should be a T and the cross. And then if we have the chip itself with the one channel system, we have the sample on the upper part and the reagent, we can mix it. And after mixing that one, we can do the injection and the downstream separation by the electric field. And at the end, we can just collect fractions or doing another reactions and so forth. And this is just the size of one of these microchips. It's an old slide, as you can see. It's a 1 Hungarian forint on it, which doesn't even exist anymore in circulation. But that's the size of a penny. That's the same thing. And the point here is that it's like 10 centimeter long, 2 centimeter wide, and maybe 2 millimeter thick glass chip with the T injection part, what can be used for such an analysis. And unfortunately, I guess actually none of the movies will be working. I uploaded 86 megabytes of this thing, but with the hope that it will work. And I checked it, but so anyway, so it would show how it dispenses picoliters of materials. And based on that one, for the multi-channel system, we have to use computerized design. So with the computer help, we can design the injector block, the separation block, the detection part, and considering things like the mobility modeling, the Joule heating, because these channels act like a resistor. If we apply the high electric field, it will warm up, so we have to dissipate that heat, otherwise the diffusion will ruin our analysis and separation, so it's a problem too. But the computer design will help us, and then we can do with system integration with integrated parallel analysis. This, if it worked, it was under a microscope. So it's a real movie with red and the green component getting mixed in the middle and doing some incubation, going to the separation part and doing the separation in just a couple of seconds. So that's the power of microchips. And again, this is as small as a credit card. The channels are maybe 50, sometimes even 20 micro deep only, and the separation power is really, really high. I'm sorry that it doesn't work here. So let's see actually how can we use it for doing diagnostics in space. The radiation is one of the most dangerous risks for humans in space. And the whole body exposure of just 10 gray is lethal. Some bacteria can survive up to like 200, 300 grays. The C. elegans even up to 5,000 grays, or the tardigrade, there's the round one, the tardigrade down here. And the tardigrade is an interesting species because it has this very protective protein layer, but it prevents damaging by the X-rays, for example, or bacteria. Bacteria can even survive, some of them 12,000 grays, and these bacteria can live on the side of the nuclear reactors. So, considering a round trip to Mars, that the astronauts are expected to expose to an approximate amount of radiation what exceeds actually the lifetime on Earth. And this elevated radiation is mainly coming from galactic cosmic rays, it's 85% proton, or the solar particle events with mostly protons. And the solar particle events are intermittent, so it's not a constant thing. But the galactic cosmic rays are constantly, actually, so that the astronauts are exposed because, unfortunately, the space capsules, the wall of those cannot really provide enough protection against those. So, what we did, we tried to simulate that one here. in Debrecen with the Atomki, which is the nuclear research center of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And what we did, we used this Thundertron accelerator, and with that one, we used human immunoglobulin G1, human IgG1, as I showed before, that because the glycosylation of that one reflects a lot of diseases, the changes in the glycosylation in that one. So the other thing which it reflects is aging too. There is a chronological age, what we can count by the days, but there is a glycan age, because the glycan is changing differently with the chronological age. And it's a very interesting thing that how does that happen in space? And I guess one of our goals to try to find that out. But in these experiments, the focus was to investigate the effect of this low energy proton irradiation on the IgG glycosylation, with the goal if disease-associated changes are because of the radiation or because of the disease. And it's very important in space if you have any kind of problem. So what we did was we irradiated this human IgG solution. We designed a special sample holder for that one to prevent evaporation, so it was in fluid all the time, and the lower trace shows the control, and the upper traces are showing the results after different levels of irradiation. And as you can see in the second one from the bottom, after 36,000 grays, which is way much higher than can even imagine, that the neutral structures of the glycans of the IgG still there. So we can still use those for diagnostics. Not really the silylated ones, because the silylated ones are gone, and all of them are gone above like 181,000 grays, but again, it's just too much for anything anyway, but we just wanted to check how it works. So as a summary, what I can say that the lab on a chip here is a reality for synthesis or analysis even in space. And the synthesis part is interesting too, because these microchips can be used for synthesizing even drugs up there. Because if you take drugs up from the Earth, for example, there is remdesivir, what was an actual experiment of Dr. Darvar's group here in Hungary with collaboration with some Japanese researchers, that it was up there in the International Space Station, and with some solubility enhancement, they survived a year. And usually they don't survive that much, these compounds up there. On Earth, it was like a 5-year lifetime for that one. In space, it was maybe much less, unless they did this special treatment. And again, this is either one way to take these drugs up if it's necessary, or being synthesized up there. The other thing I mentioned that was DNA sequencing with the multi-capillary electrophoresis system. So it was just the beginning how microfluidics started with capillaries and emerged towards the microfabricated devices, which are small and can be used in space. So regarding the diagnostics in space, what we tested was the stability of the conserved glycosylation human IgG glycans under simulated space radiation, and our results suggested that even with the significant proton irradiation, that these structures survived like 10,000 gray dose, even higher, which is 1,000 times higher than anybody can expose, even a long Mars mission. So considering this one, the expected galactic cosmic ray dose of around 0.12 gray per year, and the SPEs on a round trip to Mars, and getting samples like saliva, for example, because it's a non-invasive sampling method, so it's not like drawing blood in space, which would be way much tougher. Saliva is easy to collect, and the glycans are still there, the same way as in blood, so we can check those markers, and if there are changes there, we can be assured that these are not because of the radiation, but because of a disease. So it's very important that in that case, astronauts can take the right medication and so forth. So with that one, I just would like to acknowledge my co-workers in my 2 laboratories in Hungary, the Horváth Csaba Laboratory of Bioseparation Sciences, University of Debrecen, and the Translational Glycomics Lab in Veszprém, Máté Szarka, who did the irradiation experiments in Atomki. And I would like to especially appreciate the help of Miklós Bodor, an external member of the MTA, who actually would have talked in this meeting, but unfortunately he couldn't come. But his presentation is available online about retrometabolic drug design. And finally, I just would like to dedicate this presentation to Professor Csaba Horváth, who we named our institute after. Thank you very much.
Nem velem, ott a technikai...
Meg lehet nézni, mi maradt a piáimból?
Ott beszélnek.
Ja, oké.
Nem tudom, ezt mondtam, hogy nem így kellene.
Valahogy ezt kompenzálták.